here. I am joined now by 11 Alive News senior investigative reporter Rebecca Lindstrom with an update on a story you've been following for some time, and it is on a topic that is fascinating: citizens' arrests in Georgia.
I actually get really excited when I talk about this because one of my favorite parts about the job is the ability to learn something new every day. And this is something I'll just admit, I had no idea existed, did not know it was an option. And we deal with so many people who come to us with an issue the police have just said, hey, that's a civil issue. We can't do anything about it. And there's very little that we can offer as guidance for what they do next. Until we learned about this tool, take a look.
Here's a stack. All of these were different civil cases. The charge.
Nikki Arntz has a file box full of evidence. Documents, she says, proves the guy she hired to build her house, Larry Shepard, committed a crime.
He has a really good way of making you feel comfortable, that he's capable, and that he's honest, and at the end of the day, he's none of those things.
So how much had you already paid for cabinets?
Arntz says money for her cabinets and HVAC system went missing. She believes Shepard also overcharged her for other projects to pocket the money. She calls it theft and fraud. Police see it differently.
And their supervisor was very adamant that this was a civil case where he actually was convicted.
Arntz showed police previous civil lawsuits people had filed against Shepard.
How many civil lawsuits does it take before it becomes criminal? How long can someone take advantage of people like that before they're held accountable?
While her box didn't change their minds, it did reveal another option. Police noticed one case that wasn't a lawsuit. It was a conviction in 2007 that stemmed from a citizen arrest warrant. It is a process where anyone can ask the court to do what police won't. So she did.
It's a unique process in Georgia. It's an opportunity for an individual, as you said, who believes they have been wronged to come in and have a neutral third party hear this case.
Fulton's Chief Magistrate Court Judge, Cassandra Kirk, says the process varies by county, but the basics remain the same.
The burden of proof for our citizen warrant applications is the same as it would be for the law enforcement.
Then why aren't police just doing this?
And so police budgets are tight, as are all, and so each of us is prioritizing cases, and it may be that this police department does not have the staff to handle this type of case.
11 Alive News Investigates filed open records requests with 4 metro counties and found of the nearly 12,000 applications filed in the past 3 years, less than 30% ended with a warrant. In White County, where Arntz made her request, it was less than 10%. About half were closed before a hearing, often because the parties went to mediation and reached a settlement. The rest were closed by the judge, usually for insufficient evidence.
I just felt like I was in Law and Order or something, like I called my witnesses, I had to ask them questions, and then Larry was able to get up and speak.
In court, Arntz's box paid off. Shepard was arrested on 3 counts of fraudulently misusing funds. We reached out to Shepard about the accusations, but in an email he said he couldn't comment. Now it is up to the district attorney's office to decide if it can prove the case to a jury.
It's scary. I hope and pray that I've provided them with enough information.
Arntz knows it's not a sure thing. Our investigation found the DA's office has only pursued indictments in roughly half of the arrest warrants issued in White County since 2023. Still hopeful, former clients of Shepard have followed her lead, getting charges or arrest warrants in Franklin and Gilmer counties, too.
One thing that I said to myself going into this was, I may not have been his first victim, but I want to be his last.
All right, so the district attorney did decide to take this case, seriously, felt that there was enough evidence there that Nikki had been able to provide, and then the research with their investigators to take this to the grand jury, and he did. And instead of just 3, they actually got 6 felony counts for the indictment. So
and the grand jury indicted. They true billed.
The grand jury true billed. 3 of them for theft by taking, 2 for conversion of payments for real property improvements. That is a offense that is specific to construction here in Georgia, and another one for identity theft. He's accused of using a name and contractor's license that he did not have permission to use, and therefore, saying, hey, I've got permission within the state of Georgia to to do this, and here's my license number to do it, when there is evidence or at least an allegation that that was not actually the case.
That is a lot to unpack, and you were right. Because one of my favorite parts of the job is learning things that I did not know, and like you admitted earlier, I didn't know that this was a thing that was legal under Georgia's code.
It is.
Clearly is, and we saw, 11,000, almost 12,000 people have attempted to do this.
There are a lot of cases that are abandonment. That is essentially if someone's supposed to be paying child support and they don't, then you can go after them for abandonment. That sits in this. I went through all of the cases there in White County just because it was a much more manageable number. But to look through and see just what people were filing these warrants, and it ranged from, it is a lot of family and neighbor disputes. It is things that clearly matter to those individuals that I can see why police might say, we just don't have the bandwidth to deal with this. But it might be a family member who stole all of grandma's medication and grandma doesn't have any money to go back and get that medication. Well, that's still theft, and so grandma still has the right to pursue for theft charges. But if police aren't going to do it, this is the tool where grandma goes and does it. And so again, a lot of the counties do require mediation before you can have that official hearing. And so many of these are being resolved in mediation. But for those that do go before the judge, like I said, about 30% are leading to actual arrest warrants.
And important to underscore here, too, this is in the criminal side of our justice system. This is
Correct.
not civil.
No.
This is criminal.
Absolutely.
The question that I had, and you and I were chatting a little bit while that story was airing, and I think it's worth talking about here now, the enforcement mechanism. This is not a situation where, like a law enforcement officer would go get a warrant sworn out and then go into the community and physically serve the warrant, put somebody in handcuffs at their house, at the shopping mall, at a parking lot, something like that. When a citizen goes and gets one of these warrants, the enforcement and service mechanism is different, right?
It can be. It is different in the sense that police are going to go before that judge, present the information. If the judge feels there's probable cause, then yes, that's the process that happens. When it's you or I who does that, there's going to be a hearing. So I have to stand before the judge, give all of my evidence just like you would in a trial. And the person accused also is invited to that hearing to defend themselves. So it really is kind of a mini trial. And then the judge decides if he or she feels that there is probable cause for that arrest. So if someone has come to defend themselves and the judge says, you know what, I think there's probable cause, they're just arrested there on the spot.
A bailiff, a sheriff's deputy
Right.
in the courtroom,
Just
they're going to
makes it
get
happen.
you there.
And that was indeed what happened with Larry Shepard. Now, if the person does not show up, but enough evidence is presented, then it would play out more like what you were describing, where there is a legitimate arrest warrant for the person. Depending on the type of offense would determine if that sheriff's physically going to go out and try to find that person, or if this is just going to sit on their record and the next time they run a stop sign or something like that, it shows up that there's an arrest warrant and then they get picked up. That part of it, is going to be dependent. But what I also think is really fascinating about this is if you go and you make an accusation against someone and then someone else comes, they defend themselves, the judge listens to all of that information, and if they think the person who brought the accusation also committed a crime, they too can be arrested. So this is the judge is just listening for crimes committed.
So proceed
on
if
any
you're an
party.
accuser.
Yes, and we did see
with some caution.
cases where the accuser was the one arrested.
My last question on this, and then I know we have to wrap up, but this is fascinating and something we don't see often, but obviously people are using to cap what you've just very aptly laid out for us in this kind of wonky side of our justice system. If you and I are in a dispute, you accuse me of breaking the law, you go before the judge, I skip that hearing. The judge says, yeah, you're right. Zach did break the law. This is all hypothetical.
Don't break the law.
Yeah, don't do that. But then you get a warrant sworn out for my arrest. It wouldn't be on you, the private citizen, to
No,
go and serve
no.
it. So then it goes into
Absolutely
law
not.
enforcement's database of active warrants.
Yep.
And then it's on
That's
them,
the
a
process
police
that
officer,
takes care of
sheriff's
it.
deputy, to go out and actually serve it.
Correct.
And I ask that only because, as you and we all know, warrant service is statistically one of the most dangerous
Yes.
elements of law enforcement. So if you're watching this and thinking, Rebecca, who is quite capable, but Rebecca would, in this scenario, be going out and actually serving the warrant. That's not quite the case.
To say citizen arrest warrant means you're going to go through a process to have law enforcement pick up and do that part of the job based off probable cause. This is not an application or permission to go out and just start handcuffing people because you think they broke the law.
But it is a way to give law enforcement the tool to do that
Yes.
if your case is one that meets the probable cause threshold.
And we've seen it go all the way to a grand jury.
Rebecca Lindstrom, we learn something new every time you visit us, and I suspect maybe some people who are watching who have some lingering issues may have their gears turning right now as well. If you're one of those people, you can learn more Rebecca's story. It's on our website, 11 Alive, and right here on 11 Alive Plus. Rebecca, thank you as always.